Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. And today we're discussing a fun 2024 launch in 104 pieces in stainless steel by Breitling. This is the Chronomat 42 NFL edition, and the edition within the edition is the New York Jets. So each NFL team got 104 limited edition Chronomat 42s built with its distinctive colors and logos. And so this is for the New York Jets. And I cheer for the New York Jets, so this is my watch. I'm also a big fan of green, so this is doubly my watch. Of course, it is part of the Reborn Chronomat family that channels the earliest of the Schneider era comeback chronographs from the early 80s. The Chronomat, originally developed in conjunction with the Italian military aerobatic squadron Frecce Tricolore, somewhere between a pilot's watch and a dive watch, and it's been one of the linchpins and cornerstones of the Breitling catalog ever since the rebirth of the Chronomat name in 1983. So this watch features some homage elements to that original, including the Rouleaux bracelet, the onion-style crown, and the rider tabs on the unidirectional bezel. Of course, Jets logo on the running seconds and Jets green and white on the dial. So let's take a look at what we've got here in stainless steel, 42 millimeters in diameter, 15.3 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 50.5 millimeters. The spacing between the lugs is 22, but you can see that the shoulders of the links are actually out to the edge of the case, so it's not quite as simple as just sticking a 22 millimeter strap in there. Use an OEM example or get your custom strap maker to cut for the shoulder overlap of the lugs. The bracelet is robust, quite a bit more solid than its 80s counterpart. You can see it has a taper, it has polish, it has satin, it has a polished shoulder, and then we have removable links fixed by pins and bars, and quite a bit of removable links here, so you will find that the sizing is easy to accomplish. We've got a double folding clasp with twin trigger release, so when it closes up, it stays shut until you press both triggers. Breitling company name and the logo. Then we take a look at the case, which is somewhere between a round case and a tonneau. So we've got mostly satin finish, but with this polished bevel that runs the length of the case. We have a shear and crown guard profile for the chronograph pushers and the crown, screw down crown, and this watch is viable as a diver. It is 200 meters water resistant, and though often aviation associated, the modern Chronomat, that is post 1983, generally has a unidirectional bezel like this one, so 120 click with a very refined and positive feel. It's an excellent dive bezel in that regard. Line the pearl up with the minute hand, and now you can time two events concurrently, one with the chronograph, one with the bezel. Easy to read in the dark, and surprisingly, every single hand on the dial fully luminescent. You can see how that minute hand lines up with the bezel pearl for timing of your dive. The bezel features these rider tabs, which are a feature that originally got added to make it easier for gloved hands in a cockpit to manipulate the bezel, but it also makes it easier for wet hands in a dive environment to manipulate the bezel. And then outboard, you can see the screws that fix the bezel to the case. This is what's known as a captive bezel. So you have to dismantle it and remove all the screws to pop it off so it can't be snapped off by a sudden impact. You can see we have a combination of satin and polish on this bezel. Good looking all around. Tachymetric scale on the dial. So I always say, this is for race cars, or maybe if we are talking about American football, we add some mental decimals here for human speeds, and perhaps when you start the kilometer or 100 meters, we start the chronograph, and then when the distance has elapsed, you stop it, you read on the scale, you make your conversions if necessary, and then you know the speed of either your offensive lineman or your racing car, or perhaps your racing aircraft. Now, also important, we've got a scale inboard of the scale. You can see there's this 100-point scale. I wouldn't say this is something anyone will ever use, but it's there for nostalgic purposes. Once upon a time, decimeter scales that measured hundredths of a second were considered to be useful for certain technical applications. Well, that's generally not the case today, but if you wonder what that inner scale is, it is a decimeter scale. Lacquer green dial, Jets logo over in the corner. Of course, they are known as the Jets because, well, Initially, I think the idea was that they would be associated with the airports on Long Island where most Jets fans are located and where the Jets used to train. When I was a kid, they trained at Hofstra, which is a university on Long Island, and they were often associated with New York in the same sense that the Mets are often associated with the Long Island sports. The Jets were associated with Long Island sports, and there are two big airports, JFK and LaGuardia, on Long Island. They've also got MacArthur, Gretzky, and some smaller ones, but mostly those two. So the Jets, we had the Jets, the Mets, and if you want to go by the alignment of New York sports, it's generally Jets, Mets, Knicks, and Islanders. And some people take it all the way down to arena football and high school and college sports, but we're going to stop there for the sake of this video. The watch is robust and solidly built. When you turn it over, you can see that the logo on the back, NFL logo. Now, this is the whole league. And if you're wondering why we call this sport that's played with hands football, your guess is as good as mine. So we've got the B01 caliber in here, 47 joules, automatic winding, 72-hour power reserve, 4 hertz beat rate. We've got a quick set date, hacking seconds. We've got a vertical clutch engagement for the chronograph, which means no jump or extraneous movement when you start the chronograph. And you can leave the chronograph running if you wish with the vertical clutch. There's no additional wear and tear. The column wheel, which is actually visible on the case back, makes for very crisp action. The B01's always been exceptional in that regard. This movement's also adjusted in 5 positions, and the movement is a certified Swiss chronometer via the COSC. So go Jets! Long-suffering fans can show their loyalty with this Breitling Chronomat 42 NFL Edition New York Jets. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.